special guest with us today. I teased it yesterday, didn't tell you the name, but he's here with us today. We have Ashwell Prince, and we're going to look ahead at the future. I've always wanted to sit down and have a conversation with Ash, but obviously, in the past, with COVID and everything, it made it difficult. But we still have this opportunity to be able to do interviews. So I'm really excited about this conversation. We're going to bring it to you next. But before we get going, please remember to do a couple of things for us. Download the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics magazine monthly. Every issue is 100% free, straight to your inbox every month. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. If you want to help us grow South African cricket, promote South African cricket, and you want to get involved from that perspective, cricketfanaticsmag.com has a Patreon account. Get involved over there. We will try to put as much as what we make there back into cricket as best as we can. Then go to cricketfanaticsmag.com for all your regular updates. And obviously, don't forget to smash that like button, comment, and share. So let's get straight into this. I don't want to waste too much time. I want to get straight into the conversation with Ashwell Prince. Let's get into it. A very good evening. Welcome everybody to Cricket Fanatics Magazine. This is your daily show. I'm your host Khalid, my co-host Aditya, and today we are joined by Ashwell Prince. Ashwell, welcome to the show. If you do see your mic getting muted, no, it's my side. I'm doing it, so just in case I can control it. But welcome to the show. First and foremost, I've been waiting for a very long time to just sit down, have a conversation with you about cricket. Not about a specific angle, not about a specific thing that has happened or controversy that's happened in the industry, just to talk about cricket. So, first and foremost, welcome to the show. And what have you been up to since obviously we know the coaching hasn't, you haven't really been doing much coaching recently, but what have you been up to in recent times?
Khalid, yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, I've been doing some coaching, just not at a professional level, but most of my time has been spent obviously with the family. Like I said, after I finished with Bangladesh, that I wanted to spend more time with the family. The boys are growing up now. I'm just in the car park here. Football match about to kick off at about 8:45. So this is exactly what I've been doing. The boys are getting big, and they obviously having their time in the sun, and just want to be there to support them. Like I was fortunate to have my parents support me when I was a youngster, so pretty much doing mostly that, and then yeah, obviously establish the foundation with Vincent. And then one or two other things, quite exciting things in the pipeline. Might come out soon. But yeah, it's but mostly involved with the family.
Okay, so no Cricket Fanatics exclusive today yet. Actually, what I want to ask you about, I see your son also playing in the Champions League kickoff spot there, you say. The kickoff time, 8:45 slot. Champions League. But let's talk about that new venture. I see my lights just went on now as well. It's load shedding this side. So, from your perspective, where South African cricket is currently, that's what I want to speak about because I've been almost having these, you could say, sad days on Cricket Fanatics magazine for the last couple of days, talking about how I feel that there's kind of a decline in the red ball game in South Africa and maybe even in the world with the amount of the less and less cricket that we're playing. But I specifically wanted to start with that gap between domestic cricket and test cricket. Now we've seen it now as a massive problem because I mean I've been speaking about it for the last 3 years now, saying I'd would like them to put some youngsters in amongst those old head experienced heads at the time. You know, Amla when he was retiring, AB and Faf, get some youngsters in early, let them learn from the others, even if they don't play, just be part of the squad. You know, and now we're sitting with a situation. I feel that is almost like a result of that, almost a symptom of that, where we're sitting with a whole lot of inexperienced guys that are learning about the test game on the field as they go. So I just want to ask you about your opinion on the current state of red ball cricket in South Africa. Where do you think it's kind of heading? Do you think we still have a chance to revive it again and get to that level that we were before?
Yeah, definitely. Um, I wouldn't write us off as a test match nation. I think obviously losing the series was disappointing. But it was only 3 or so weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, when we sat here or wherever we were in our lounges watching the guys win that first test at Lords, and everybody was kind of excited about our prospects in test match cricket for the future. I'm personally one of those guys, so I wouldn't be writing our guys off. I think we made some big mistakes in the series, and for me, the biggest mistakes were in decision making. I felt that we were particularly decisive in that first test match when, it would have been easier to pick an extra batsman to come in at 6, Kyle Verreynne to move to number 7, and then only have 4 bowlers, so 3 seamers and a spinner. And that would have been a safer way to go. We went aggressive and ultra positive with that decision making in terms of how to get 20 wickets. 4 seamers, Keshav, and obviously that meant that Marco Jansen had to come in at number 7, which was a bold move, but I thought was brave and exciting. And from there on, for the rest of the series, it's as if the decision making deteriorated from there on. In that second test, it just felt like we were chasing all the decisions based on the fact that we obviously felt it's going to spin, and we selected 2 spinners. And even though we selected 2 spinners, I still think that 3 fast bowlers that we did select for that second test could have done some serious damage bowling first. Even though we selected the 2 spinners, the conditions were so much cloud and overcast, and perfect for bowling, and we chose to bat. And obviously that now in hindsight it's easier to say, but some days just feel like a bowling day, regardless of what you selected as a team. Still feels like a bowling day. And if the ball is going to swing and seam around, you don't need 4 seamers to bowl people out. You can do it with 3 seamers. And so anyway, I mean, that's one aspect in terms of how the series went. To come back to your question about domestic cricket, I do feel that scouting and um, identifying players is a very important role, because we're talking about the gap between domestic and test. And sometimes, you know, the, the I need to think about how I put this.
Yeah.
The biggest decisions that you have to make is is not is not necessarily picking the guy who is sort of dominating domestic cricket, because we now know that there is a gap and a fairly substantial gap between test match batting and batting at first class level. So what I'm trying to say here is that it's not so much the guy with the ability to smash people in our 4 day cricket or whatever the case may be, but it's the for the scouts, the challenge is identifying the people who can keep the good bowling out. So test match cricket, as much as putting the bad balls away, is about, the best way I can describe it. If you have somebody like Vernon Philander on a day 1 at Newlands, an
Mhm.
ideal, not the over the top type of surface, a normal Newlands pitch, day 1, and it's going to nibble around a bit, and the guy is going to test your technique inside out. The guy who can withstand that test is probably more important than the guy who can put sword to average bowling. And I think what we're finding is that perhaps we're selecting too many of the same kind who probably has a better skill set at dominating average bowling, or putting that to the sword, rather than the challenge of a Vernon Philander, which is kind of equivalent to a James Anderson and a Stuart Broad, on an overcast day, or just the first day. It doesn't even have to be overcast. It just have to be the first day of a test match. It's a
Mm.
kind of test that doesn't speak to your your aggressive scoring ability. It speaks to your staying ability, staying at the crease, keeping good bowlers out who is bowling good deliveries. That's a test match batsman for me.
Mm. Now, Ashwell, I'm smiling here because you set up this perfectly because I've been saying something similar, and I want to ask you if my theory is correct. Because I'm just a fan sitting on the couch watching the game. I'm not out there playing in the middle. So we know that fans have their own opinions and their own insights into what they think is happening, and this is why we do these type of shows, because I want to get into the nitty gritty and really get the understanding of how things actually work. When I look at, I'm not going to mention specific names now in the test team. I don't want to really put people on blast necessarily. So what I'm going to say is rather what I've seen in the past is, and for many years, is when we do give people selection and now opportunities, the selectors have gone with experience, and particularly averages and looking at people how many hundreds were scored and all of those type of things. The normal basic average, the stats that we can probably Google on Click Info anyway. But my concern over there is that just because someone has a certain amount of hundreds and certain amount of 50s or certain amount of runs and a certain average does not necessarily tell the full picture for me personally. When I look at a guy, I look at the conversion rate too, because if they can't convert their 50s into hundreds, then at domestic level, what is the chances of them being able to do it at international level is my thing, because test cricket is the utmost level. But not only that, for me, when I look at the stats, that conversion rate tells me a story about the player, mentality wise, patience wise, all of those type of things. I want to know if selectors actually, if you know, because I'm obviously you were selected before back in the day, and it's obviously changed a lot since since you were there. But how do they scout? What is the process when you're looking for a player? Because the eye test is also extremely important, not just the stats. In my opinion.
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of factors to be considered. Um, for instance, we would have debates about. Well, I'm speaking about when I was selected. I can't speak for the people now because I haven't been there. It's been about a good 6-7 years since I was a selector, if not more than that. So um, you would have debates about you know um, where is it harder to bat in South Africa now. For me, it's unanimous that the coastal surfaces are tougher to bat and harder to score on in South Africa, and the upcountry pitches is sometimes flatter or most times flatter. Yes, they have a little bit more bounce, um, and they might have some cracks later on in the game. But traditionally, the batting averages on the coastal pitches have been, you know, a few runs lower than those who are batting mostly in the Highveld, Bloemfontein, Centurion Park. And I speak for myself. Personally, I felt Centurion was the easiest place to bat in the country. Um, and are we surprised that we're getting a lot of high averages and then people breaking into the national team? I'm not surprised because if you're only looking at the stats, the guys who batted Centurion will dominate the stats for me because, again, like I say, personally, it was probably one of the easiest places to bat in the country. Now, those guys will obviously want to defend themselves and etc. But that's fact. Well, for my career anyway, that was fact. And I find that I think if we do a study, you'll probably find that that's accurate. The same for Bloemfontein versus batting anywhere else. So, a great example would be to take the stats of somebody like Van Tonder and compare his stats playing at Bloemfontein versus playing away from Bloemfontein. And I know the answer, but if you look a little bit deeper into those things, you'll find something a little bit closer to the truth. So this is exactly what you're asking. Do we only look at the stats and the guy's average and we say, well, he scored so many hundreds, so he deserves to be in the team? But when you go a little bit deeper, you find that when he bats at Bloemfontein, maybe he's averaging 70. When he's batting at anywhere away from Bloemfontein, maybe that is 25 or 30. I'm not saying the guy is not a good player. I still think he's a good player and he's one for the future. But you get a little bit more information when you dig a little deeper.
Aditya, I'm going to ask one more and then I'm going to give you three. Okay, so just to continue this because it's very interesting. Because I made a suggestion, for example, just this is just from my observation of watching, for example, someone like Clinton Steerman. I've noticed something, and also someone like Graham October, as in conversations with him, watching him bowl as watching Clinton bowl as well. We've noticed that new ball bowling is his strength. For example, he normally takes wickets in his first spell with a new ball, and he's quite dangerous, especially at wickets like that, like you mentioned in the coast. Perhaps it would be a good idea for them to look at, because he's been a guy that's been working away in domestic cricket for the last couple of years. It might be good to watch and look for the batters that have played him the best in domestic cricket. Do coaches get those stats to see, like, versus specific bowlers at specific conditions at specific grounds? Do you guys as selectors also get that information?
Absolutely, the stats these days, what they call it. I mean, they got a obviously. I mean, everything has got a fancy term these days. They call it the sort of competitive intelligence type of thing. So, I mean, that is all those stats are available, and you can refine them as much as you want. You can filter them as much as you want, and that's obviously a conversation between the coaching staff and your data analyst and video analyst, and you can get as much detail as you want. You can even to the point where um, it's individual batsman versus individual bowler. How many balls that bowler has bowled to that batsman? How many runs he scored of him? How many times he's dismissed him? So it's quite. It goes quite deep, and you can get as much as you want. You know, whatever the coaches feel is relevant, you're able to get that.
Cool, ID.
How is it, Ashwell? Great chatting to you here. My first question is that there's been a lot of chat about the batting in the South African team. And there's so many theories about it. Whether it's selection, or whether it's domestic cricket, whether it's the development of a batter. But you look at the other side of the coin, the bowlers are doing just fine. In fact, they've contributed vastly to South Africa's success in recent times. So my question to you is that why do you think the development of batters is lacking compared to the bowlers who are doing exceedingly well?
Yeah, it's a question, I suppose, that is on everybody's lips at the moment. What is going on with South Africa's batting? How do you fix it? Um, Test match batting is quite intense in terms of um, how much you need to know about yourself, your own technique, your own strengths, your own limitations. It's also quite intense in terms of how much you need to know about the opposition, um, in terms of what type of question every single bowler. And when I say every single bowler, I kind of mean that in terms of, if you're a test match batsman and you want to be successful against all the best players in the world, you've got to kind of know that in every opposition lineup, what type of questions every batter will ask. So the homework, if you like, the preparation, the in-depth sort of studying the opposition. So one, you can have the video analyst give you that. You can have the coach give you that. But as an individual, you have to process all that stuff. So I'm not sure if with all this T20 cricket, and most of the time, 90% of the time, you're being on a flat wicket that's not going to spin, it's not going to seam. You just have to pitch up, and if the ball comes on, you hit through the line of it. You don't have to think or apply your mind too much to that, because it's just, it's good pitches, and yes, some spinners might have some variations. Um, some seam bowlers might have some cutters that they're going to bowl, whatever the case may be. But in terms of test match batting and the preparation that goes into it, the mental preparation, the planning, understanding, like I say, how every bowler is going to try and get you out, and then coming up with a plan to combat each individual bowler in every bowling attack around the world. And then you add to that all the different surfaces that they might challenge you on. So you might pitch up at Old Trafford and it's an absolute road and it doesn't play like it did in a test match, and then maybe you don't have to think about it that much. But if it plays the way he played in a test match, it's a different challenge. And then you got to decide basically, are you playing the same way every game? Are you adapting to the surface because the surface is kind of asking different questions? So it's like a computer that needs to process. You need to process all these things and come up with answers. And sometimes the answers, and maybe I'm going against the grain here in terms of what is happening with England and baseball and the way that they want to play. But sometimes the answers is just to leave the ball, man. Just leave it alone for a bit, and or block a few. Um, just block a few because the ball does get older, the ball does get softer. And again, like I say, when I'm talking about the planning, you've got to understand when and where and against who and how you are going to score your runs. Before you go and score your runs, you need to understand that. So it's not just like, oh, somebody is running in from the James Anderson end, and now I got to face up to a ball. You gotta understand against who. When you come into the crease at number 5 or 6, where I batted predominantly, you're going to have one of the top fast bowlers in the world, and most likely at the other end will be a spin bowler bowling at that time. So you kind of already preparing yourself because you're coming in 3 down, 4 down. There's already maybe 30, 40 overs into the game. In those days, 30, 40 overs into the game when you come in. Um, and, the spinner might be coming into the game. Um, the seamers might be on. Somebody fresh will be coming on after that. So you got to know, between 40 and 80 overs, the bulk of my runs, that's where I'm going to score them. When the new ball comes, they've got a chance. When they have a chance, I have to be watchful. After 20 overs of that new ball, I can kick on again. All these things are part of planning and preparation and understanding. And the biggest thing in test match cricket for me, or in any cricket, is understanding. It's like preparing for an exam that you're going to go and write, whether it's math or science or whatever it is. If you understand the work, then you don't have to panic about it because you understand what's going on. You are prepared, and you just go and execute what you need to do.
I shall give you my secrets of high school away. If you understand, you don't have to study.
To touch on something that you said in your response there, a lot of the narrative going around in Test cricket, certainly over the last couple of years, is that you got to be aggressive, you got to score, you got to show intent, and a lot of it revolves around this idea of batters being dominant while they're at the crease because a certain ball has got your name on it, and somewhere I feel like you know the age old tenets of hanging in there, defending, or trusting your defense seems to have vanished really. And I was wondering what your views are on that.
And leaving the
So
ball. And leaving the ball. I mean, that doesn't. They play at every ball.
yeah, I had quite a simple philosophy, and maybe this comes into the equation or into your question as well. And I don't know if it still applies in test match cricket or not, but it's quite simple. If I'm playing my best effort at the defensive stroke, and the guy beats me and he takes my outside edge or he clips the top of my off stump, then I can sleep easy at night because I've given my best effort to keep that ball out. And if it nips and seams and takes the top of my off stump or takes my outside edge or whatever the case may be. So basically, what I'm saying is, if I'm dismissed by a good delivery, I can sleep easy at night because ultimately the bowler prepares as much as the batter prepares. So he's allowed to bowl your good ball. He hones his skill as much as you own your skill. And if he delivers you a top delivery, then I can sleep easy at night. But if I'm losing my wicket 70, 80, 90% of the time through a mistake from myself, so a poor stroke that is an unforced error, basically. I mean, you're not forced into a mistake. It's not like you were beaten. So if I'm losing my wicket 70, 80%, 90% of the time because of my false stroke, my poor decision making, then that's exactly the area that I have to go and address. I have to address my tendency, and perhaps my thinking needs to be challenged. Exactly the thinking that where you're saying, while the ball's going to have my name on it. I mean, I don't think you can be successful in Test match cricket if that's the way that you think, that a ball's going to have your name on it. If you're giving your best, because when a ball is traveling down at you, the line and the length that it's coming at you, that it's traveling at, it tells you this is going to be a good ball, and immediate reaction is that it deserves all my respect, and you play it accordingly. So, but if you believe that anybody's good ball is going to get you out, then maybe that's the starting point of people not trusting their defense, like you say. I mean, if to be a Test match cricketer, you got to trust your defense because Test match bowlers don't bowl bad balls. They the the theory is that the older you get, the higher the level you get, the less bad balls you get, and that's obviously true for the game. For as long as the game has been around, the higher the level that you play, the less bad balls you get. So you cannot plan to play a Test match innings to feast on bad bowling because you're not going to get bad bowling. The best bowlers in the world are accurate. They hone in on an area and they wear you down until they get you. They repeat the top of off stump area until they get you. So if you're planning to go and score 100 because somebody's going to bowl wide of off stump to give you cuts and pulls and half volleys, that ain't going to happen. So you've got to be able to hang on to such a time where the ball gets softer and conditions then start turning into the batter's favor. But the game hasn't changed. When the ball is new and hard and the pitch is fresh, the conditions are in the bowler's favor. But there comes a time in the innings and in the match when the advantage turns to the batter. You got to make sure that you hang on as much as you can, trust your defense until that time when the ball gets to a certain point and the pitch has been under the sun and it's beyond the first session, it's going into the second session, leading up to tea time, coming to the back end of the day's play. And now as a batsman, you can feast because there is a shift. And then there's 10 overs before the close of play with the new ball. And then you got to survive again. then you got to survive again unless you're well set at the crease, which can happen. And somebody takes a new ball and he's not on top of his game. Then obviously the new ball can present scoring opportunities. But again, all of this comes back to understanding. It comes back to understanding the processes, your individual process, what is required for your team at that particular time. What is the most important thing for my team right now is for me not to play a false stroke. If somebody gets me out with a great delivery, it's like almost Khalid will know in South Africa, the Ram delivery of the day was almost like dubbed as the Vernon Philander delivery of the day.
Yeah.
If he gets you out with one of those, then fair play to the bowler. You put your head down and you can sleep easy at night.
Generally on our interviews, we often ask players if if they enjoy video analysis, or if they spend a lot of time with the analyst. And typically we hear that uh, they prefer to rely on their instincts while they're on the field, and they prefer to not overcomplicate how they think about the game. And um, my thought there is that do we need to is is there a need in cricket right now to sort of train players to process information better in ways that is not overcomplicating their thinking or isn't stressing them out?
I think it's a very good question. I think there's definitely there can be situations where you have paralysis by overanalysis. That can definitely happen because there's so much information out there these days. And also another thing that can be a negative about video analysis and data analysis, sometimes you'll see immediately people get out, they go into the dressing room, and the first thing they want to see is the replays. They go on the computers, and sometimes when people watch the feedback, all they're watching is negative images of them being dismissed, and particularly batters, they're watching negative images a lot of the time, and they're only watching their dismissals. And I think sometimes, that can be detrimental. Um, Personally, as a player, I like to know what every bowler has to offer because that helped me formulate my own game plan. But I wasn't big on watching my own dismissals because I didn't want to see myself getting out all the time. If I have to watch it once, it will probably confirm to me um, the error that I made in terms of playing the stroke or not strong enough in a defensive position. I only need to see it once, and in any case, by the time you get to the dressing room, it's been shown on the big screen while you're walking off the field, so you kind of know your error, whether it wasn't strong enough in defense, whether it was something that you could have left, um, or whether it was indeed a poor shot, like I say. So sometimes relying too much on video and a data analyst to tell you things or give you things, it also can take away that self analysis, which I think is very important. I think individual players need to do, you know, they need to do a review of every innings of every match by themselves and apply their own minds to their thinking, to their approach, and to their planning for the next game and preparation for the next game. So coming back to the data analysis, I think it can be positive, but they also can be too much of it sometimes. There can be too much of it, and like you say, some players don't want to deal with, they don't want psychologists in the dressing room. Some players do. Some people will spend a lot of time looking at the data and the footage, and some people don't. You kind of have to have these people in the dressing room because you have a mixture of personalities in the dressing room. Some people want it, some people don't want it, and because there's a few that want it, you have to have it. But yeah, there's certainly a good question in terms of how much of it should happen and whether players should do more of it themselves.
Guys, okay, we're reaching the end of the show. Obviously, we know that Ashwell has to go and watch his son play. So I'm just going to give the one super chat over here. There's a lot of questions, but I'm going to only get to one or two of them. He says, do we need experienced batters? He's saying particularly hashtag tier is the brain, but there was a talk about in Dean Elgar's press conference. He spoke specifically about getting more experienced guys from domestic cricket into the setup. That he wants to trust the more experienced guys a lot more. So just your thoughts on that. Do we need more experienced domestic cricketers to come into the test arena?
Well, I mean, I don't think you can look further than somebody like Kaya Zondo, who just came in. I think in terms of domestic cricketers, he's one of the most experienced guys coming in. But then you got to question um, how much does that experience mean. We obviously, there are other names that I can throw in there. People like Peter Malan, who's vastly experienced at domestic level. He's had a taste of Test match cricket. It wasn't particularly bad before he was left out. Um, so I think we have gone down the route of picking the more experienced domestic players in the Test team. Um, but there's a difference in level, and you know people got to show um, that they want to make up that ground. When you get the opportunity, you got to show that you want to make up that ground. A lot of homework needs to be done in terms of how do people score their runs in South Africa. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I've been involved in domestic cricket for quite some time. Um, and a lot of the time it's feasting on bad bowling. I have to be honest. A lot of the time it's feasting on bad bowling, and to the players, to the batters' credit, they can only face uh, they can only play what they're facing, what is put in front of them. So it's through no fault of their own. But we gotta maybe see if we can get them more matches at SAA level against strong opposition. And sometimes, if it means that it's the Test match batsman that's actually playing in that A side, maybe they should be playing those matches as well,
Mhm.
to get more experience, because it is a higher level.
Mhm. So, guys, I'm gonna keep your questions and stuff for another show. We might be able to organize a part two with Ashwell putting on the pressure live here on the show. We might be able to get a part two from him. Then we can have a full Q&A session where you guys can ask him questions, and then we just sit back and not ask him. So I'm gonna have to end it over here, guys. But thanks a lot, Ashwell, for coming on and giving me your time. I know it's you're very busy, etc. So thanks a lot for doing so. Aditya, shot for coming on as well. To all of you guys out there, thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, comment, and do all of those things. But click that notification bell for future videos. And download the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics magazine monthly. Every issue, 100% free, straight to your inbox every month. Gives you excellent insights from guys like Ashwell, guys like Vinnie Barnes. There's many other people that have written and given information about cricket that can teach you so much about your game, whether you're a professional cricketer, beginner, whether you're just a fan. This is the magazine for you. So please go ahead and get it. It's 100% free, every back issue too. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow with another daily show. Take care, everybody, and see you very, very soon. Peace out.